I don't talk about this much, mostly because it sounds weird, and people like neat endings. They want me to say it was a prank, or I imagined it, or maybe it was just some homeless guy wandering through. But I can't tell you that. All I know is what I saw, and what I felt. This happened when I was 17. I was in my final year of high school, and I was trying to pull my grades up. College applications were due, and I didn't want to be the guy stuck in our town forever. So I started staying late after school, using the library to study when it was quiet. The library closed at 6, but I'd found a side hallway in the math wing where no one really went. It had an outlet, a vending machine, and a few benches. That became my spot. I usually stayed until around 8, sometimes later if my mom thought I was at a friend's house. That night, it was a Thursday in November, I stayed until almost 9. The halls were dead silent by then. The janitors usually started upstairs first, so the lower floors stayed empty for hours. I had earbuds in, listening to a playlist while working through a stack of calculus problems. At 8:47, I remember glancing at the clock. My pen was running out of ink, so I shoved my notebook into my backpack and stood to stretch. My back cracked. I was debating grabbing a bag of chips from the vending machine when I noticed something. The light at the far end of the hallway flickered, just once. A quick buzz and dim, then back to normal. That wasn't unusual. Our school had terrible wiring. But then I realized something else. There was a shadow. It wasn't mine, and it wasn't moving. It stretched long across the linoleum floor, but when I squinted down the hallway, nobody was there. I remember saying out loud, "What the hell?" My voice bounced back at me, louder than I expected. I zipped my backpack and slung it over one shoulder, suddenly very aware of how quiet everything was. The air smelled faintly like pine sol from the janitors. That's all. No footsteps, no doors creaking, no lockers slamming, just silence. I started walking toward the exit. My shoes squeaked with each step. When I passed the vending machine, I glanced back down the hall again. The shadow was gone. I told myself it was my imagination. Maybe my own shadow cast weird from the fluorescent light. I even laughed a little to shake it off. But as soon as I turned the corner toward the stairwell, I heard something that made my stomach knot. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, not behind me, above me. I froze at the bottom of the stairs holding the railing. The sound was clear. Heel, toe, heel, toe. Someone was walking down the second floor hallway directly above mine. The problem was, the janitors had left by 8, and I knew that because I'd heard the side door slam shut earlier. I swallowed hard. I told myself maybe another student was still here, or a teacher grading papers. But the school didn't stay open that late, not unless it was a sports game night, and it wasn't. I should have left right then. But instead I whispered, "Hello?" The footsteps stopped. Silence stretched down the stairwell like a rope, pulling tight against my chest. Then, one more step. Just one. I ran. I bolted down the hall, past the main office, pushing through the double doors into the lobby. My backpack smacked against my side. I shoved the handle of the front door, but it didn't budge. Locked. That didn't make sense. They never locked the main doors until the morning. My breathing grew sharp. I turned and tried the side exit near the gym. Locked, too. Every door I checked rattled but wouldn't open. And then I heard it again. Not footsteps this time. Breathing. It was faint, echoing from the dark hallway behind the trophy case. Slow inhales, long exhales, like someone deliberately letting me know they were there. I don't remember making the decision. My body just moved. I darted toward the cafeteria doors, shoved one open, and slipped inside. The room was pitch black, the kind of darkness where your eyes take forever to adjust. I crouched behind one of the long tables, holding my breath. For a minute, nothing happened. Just the faint hum of the soda machine and the buzz of lights far off in another wing. Then a door creaked open. I peeked through the legs of the table. I couldn't see much, just a sliver of light spilling from the hallway. But I could hear it, the breathing, closer now. I bit down on my sleeve to keep quiet. My whole body shook. The steps entered the cafeteria. Slow, careful, like whoever it was knew I was there. They didn't speak, didn't call out, just move between the tables, dragging their feet softly across the tile. I pressed myself lower. My heart slammed so loud in my ears I was sure it would give me away. I tried to count the steps. 1, 2, 3. They stopped. I didn't dare look. I just squeezed my eyes shut. After a few seconds, I heard the sound of something tapping the table above me. A single, deliberate tap. Then silence. I couldn't hold it anymore. I crawled along the floor as slowly as I could until I reached the far side of the cafeteria. I pushed through the kitchen door, nearly slipping on the greasy floor tiles. The kitchen had a back exit that led to the loading dock. My only chance. I stumbled toward it, praying it wasn't locked like the others. The metal door handle turned. I nearly sobbed in relief. Cold night air hit my face as I burst outside. I sprinted across the parking lot, not stopping until I reached the streetlights by the main road. Only then did I look back. The loading dock door was closed. Nothing followed me out. I stood there for almost 20 minutes, bent over with my hands on my knees, trying not to throw up. Eventually, I pulled out my phone and called my mom, telling her to come get me from the gas station down the block. I didn't even tell her why. The next morning at school, I checked. Every single door was unlocked like normal. No one mentioned seeing anything strange. No teacher, no janitor, no student. I never stayed late again, and sometimes when I walk past the cafeteria, even now, years later, I swear I can still hear it. That slow, steady breathing. This one still makes me sweat when I think about it. It happened junior year. Back then, lockdown drills were becoming more common. Once a month, the principal would announce it over the intercom, teachers would lock their doors, we'd sit on the floor in silence, and 20 minutes later, it would be over. We all hated it, but it was routine. Except this time, it wasn't a drill. It was early October, Friday afternoon. I had gym last period, which meant I was already checked out, ready for the weekend. Our gym teacher had let us finish early, so most of the guys were in the locker room, changing back into jeans and hoodies. I was sitting on the bench tying my shoes when the intercom crackled. The principal's voice came through, low, tight. Students and staff, we are now in a lockdown. This is not a drill. The room went dead silent. No one laughed. No one cracked a joke. We all just stared at each other, wide-eyed. A couple guys froze mid-change, shirts half over their heads. Coach Daniel shouted, "Phones off!" Everyone quiet. His voice was steady, but I saw the muscles in his jaw clench. He killed the locker room lights and herded us to the corner, away from the door. For a while, all I could hear was the shuffle of sneakers and the sound of somebody breathing too hard. My phone buzzed in my pocket, but I didn't dare check it. Then came the first sound from outside. A door slammed somewhere in the gym. Not like it had been pushed shut, like it had been kicked. Every single guy flinched. I gripped the edge of the bench so hard my knuckles ached. Coach raised a finger to his lips. His eyes were locked on the locker room door. The next sound was worse. Footsteps. Not fast, not panicked, just slow. Like whoever it was knew we were listening. The steps crunched against the glossy gym floor, steady and deliberate. Then they stopped. Right outside the locker room. No one breathed. No one moved. I stared at the thin crack under the door. A shadow shifted across it. Then metal clanged. Someone rattled the locker room handle. My heart nearly stopped. Coach braced his arm against the door, even though it was locked. Like instinct told him he had to hold it. The handle jerked once, twice, then silence. Minutes passed. 5, maybe 10. Then faintly we heard the gym doors open again. The squeal of the hinges echoed, then shut with a heavy thud. For a while it seemed like whoever it was had left. Some of the guys started whispering, asking each other what the hell was happening. But Coach snapped at them to shut it. And then something else. A sound none of us could explain. A low scrape, like wood dragging across the floor. Slow, uneven. It echoed through the vents above us, growing louder. One of the guys whispered, "What the hell is that?" And Coach shot him a look so sharp he shut up instantly. The scraping went on for maybe a full minute. Then it stopped as suddenly as it started. After that, silence. We sat in that dark locker room for what felt like forever. My legs cramped from crouching. My throat was so dry I could barely swallow. Every tiny sound, breathing, shifting on the bench, fabric rustling, felt deafening. Finally, the intercom crackled again. The principal's voice returned, calmer this time. "Students and staff, the building is now all clear. Resume normal activities." No explanation, nothing, just those words. Coach exhaled, rubbed his face, and told us to grab our stuff. We filed out into the gym, every one of us looking around like we expected to see something waiting for us. But the gym was empty. No marks on the floor, no sign anyone had been there. Still, I noticed something. Near the bleachers, where the wood met the polished gym floor, there were faint scratch marks, long, shallow grooves, as if something heavy had been dragged. I didn't point it out. Nobody wanted to stay there a second longer. By the time I got outside, my phone was blowing up. Texts from friends in other classes, rumors everywhere. Some said there was a man seen walking the halls. Others said a teacher had spotted someone pulling on the fire exit doors. The official announcement later claimed it was a misunderstanding. That word stuck with me, misunderstanding. But here's the thing. A week later, during practice, I stayed late in the gym to help coach put equipment away. Everyone else had gone home. The bleachers were half pulled out, the lights buzzing overhead, and from somewhere deep under those bleachers, I heard it again. That same dragging sound, slow, uneven, like something or someone was still down there, waiting. I went to a high school that had one of those old half-underground basements. Most people didn't even know it was there unless they had a class in it. The school was built in the late 60s, and back then they thought it was smart to stick the industrial arts classrooms underground with no real windows. It was dim, smelled like dust and rusted pipes, and the ceilings were barely 8 feet high. That basement gave me the creeps from the first time I stepped into it. The walls were painted that weird yellow-green color every school seemed to use. But down there it looked sickly, almost moldy. The air never moved. And even when all the lights were on, there were always shadows lurking in the corners. I only had one reason to go down there: my freshman shop class. We built little projects with saws and drills, learning the basics. I didn't hate the class, but I hated the basement. It always felt like I was walking into a place I shouldn't be. And one night, I stayed down there too long. It was early March. I remember because snowmelt was dripping into the storm drains outside and everything smelled damp. Our shop teacher, Mr. Harlan, had let me stay late to finish a project. I was building this wooden toolbox, sanding the edges, and I wanted to get it done before spring break. The bell rang at 3, everyone else cleared out, and by 4, Mr. Harlan locked up his office and told me to head out when I finished. He trusted me, I guess. By 4:30, I was alone in the basement. The shop room was big, full of workbenches and old tools mounted on pegboards. A single radio sat in the corner, playing some classic rock station low enough to blend with the hum of the fluorescent lights. I was sanding the lid of the box when I noticed something odd. The radio cut out. Not all at once. More like static overtook the song until it fizzled into silence. I tapped the side thinking maybe the batteries died, but the little red light was still glowing. And that's when I heard the first sound. Not footsteps, not a door, a cough. It came from the hallway just outside the shop room. A dry, shallow cough, like someone trying not to be noticed. I froze with the sandpaper in my hand. I was the only one down there. I was sure of it. I walked slowly to the doorway and looked into the hall. The fluorescent bulbs buzzed overhead, some of them dimmer than others. The hall stretched out in both directions, lined with closed classroom doors. Nobody there. I stepped back into the shop, telling myself maybe it echoed down from upstairs. The vents sometimes carried sound. That had to be it. But a few minutes later, I heard it again. This time, closer. I dropped the sandpaper. My palms were damp. I shut off the radio just to listen better. Silence for almost 30 seconds, and then footsteps. I could hear them as clear as my own heartbeat. Soft shoes on tile, not boots, not heavy, just careful, slow steps coming down the hall toward the shop. I whispered, Hello? Before I could stop myself. The steps stopped immediately. I waited, clutching the edge of the workbench like it might anchor me to the earth. Nothing moved. I counted out 1 full minute, staring at the doorway. Then, like someone had pressed play again, the footsteps started, faster this time. I panicked. I bolted to the back of the shop where the storage closet was. I pulled the door shut behind me and crouched low between a stack of wood scraps and a cabinet full of nails. Through the crack, I saw the shop door. Saw the light flicker as something, or someone, passed in front of it. The footsteps entered the room. They were slower now, like whoever it was didn't want me to know where they were stepping. But the sound of weight shifting on the old linoleum floor was unmistakable. I pressed both hands over my mouth to keep quiet, and then, as if right outside the closet, I heard breathing. Not labored, not angry, just calm, steady, in and out. I swear I felt the closet door shift, like someone touched the handle. I bit my lip until it bled, praying they wouldn't open it. But then, nothing. The breathing stopped. The footsteps stopped. After what felt like forever, I finally worked up the courage to push the closet door open an inch. The shop was empty. My legs were shaking so badly I had to lean on the bench. I grabbed my backpack and sprinted down the hall toward the stairwell. My sneakers squeaked with every step, and I didn't care. I just wanted out. But when I reached the stairs, my stomach dropped. The heavy metal door at the top was closed. That wasn't unusual. It always closed on its own. But now, it was chained shut. There had never been a chain on that door. Not once. I stood there staring at it, breathing hard, my brain scrambling for another way up. There was one more stairwell at the far end of the basement. I ran for it, my backpack bouncing. Halfway down the hall, the lights flickered, and then I heard the cough again, right behind me. I didn't look. I just ran, tearing down the hallway, pushing through the second stairwell door. This one was clear, no chain, no lock. I took the stairs 2 at a time and shoved through to the first floor. The hallway upstairs was bright, empty, normal. I didn't stop until I was outside, sucking in the cold March air, my heart hammering like it wanted out of my chest. The next morning I checked. The chain on the stairwell door was gone. No sign it had ever been there. I asked Mr. Harlan if he'd locked anything up differently the night before, and he just looked at me confused. Said no. I never went down to that basement alone again. Even now, years later, sometimes when I hear someone cough in a quiet hallway, my chest tightens. Because down there, in that stale, low-ceiling basement, I know I wasn't alone.